Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to Firing Range, a podcast to talk about all things Destiny weapons, abilities, loadouts, and the sandbox at large. And man, what an what an uneventful night we have planned. There's nothing going on in the mind of the community. No one is arguing with each other about any major topic. It's great. We live in a utopia where everyone can agree about the direction the game is going. I'm trying to kill time before we get to a discussion that I'm sure everyone knows is coming. But boys, good to talk to you. How are you tonight?
Excellent. And
Doing
you?
great.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you all very much. Well, why don't we start off with the old Felwinter? I don't know about you guys, but I've been hearing about this gun for like a really long time. Did anyone ever reach a point where they didn't want to talk about it because it was only in the data mined area? Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like, sometimes I don't talk about weapons.
I never do until it's in my hands, man.
Right. Because we know things can change, you know?
I like the theory craft.
Yeah, I'm with Mark.
You're a theory crafting guy?
Yeah. Gotta go with the hypotheticals.
I like that too. One time, I can't remember what gun it was over. I had somebody in Twitch chat, and they heard about a gun that was being data mined, and that they were like, I wanted to learn that organically. It's like, oh, sorry.
I mean, from the content creator perspective, if I know something's coming way ahead of time, maybe that's an extra opportunity to provide feedback. If, for example, I heard about Revoker, I probably would have said, that's a little crazy, getting a bullet back.
Yeah, I try to do more to keep my head in the data mined area now, so if I know something is coming, I can form like an opinion in advance. But I try to make sure not to really spoil people if I hear something unique or interesting. But you know. Anyway, by the time a lot of people will hear the podcast for download, the gun will be available. But right now, as we are recording live on Twitch, the gun is not yet available. Tomorrow should be the day. So tonight is Felwinter's Eve. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of predicting, not a wild prediction, mind you, that this shotgun is going to be kind of a PvP game changer. Does anyone have a hugely different opinion on that? Because if so, we have a lot to talk about.
I'm curious as to how much of a game changer you believe it is, or it's going to be.
When I say game changer, I mean that I'm expecting when I go into trials after tomorrow, a lot of people, maybe every team will have a Felwinter user on it. Maybe not game changer in the terms of, oh, shotgunning, what a bold new idea, because we're already dealing with, you know, Astral Horizon, we're dealing with Mindbender. We've been dealing with that for a long time, so it's not going to be a radically new meta. But the gun looks hot on paper. Can we agree on that?
Oh, for sure.
Totally.
You know, it won't be spare benders anymore. It'll be spare winters now. Because
Spare winter.
yeah.
Yeah, especially with sunsetting, I envision a lot of Thorn Felwinters later. A lot of
the classics. Last word, Felwinters.
Oh, classico.
Oh,
Jesus.
didn't think about that.
I do.
So if you're hearing about the Felwinter, maybe for the first time, I kind of envy you, but there's something that this gun has, apparently, allegedly, that no other shotgun in D2 has right now. Does anyone want to comment on that? Because we all know what it is, right?
Shot package.
Attaboy, Merc.
I'll help you guys out.
For the D2 newbies, maybe the people who didn't bask in the glory of D1. Merc, tell the people at home, what is a shot package?
Shot package was the bane of every non-shotgun player's existence in D1, but it was basically a supercharged version of what we have now as full choke, where when you would aim down sights, it would tighten the pellet spread an extremely significant amount, which greatly increased the lethal range of shotguns. So they're bringing it back in a slightly modified form, at least as far as the text goes. Instead of saying it tightens the spread, it says it is modified to be more uniform. Which,
right.
Yeah.
I'm kind of... Oh, go ahead, cool guy.
If it looks similar to like what a Bastion shot looks like a hexagon.
Yeah, where it's the perfect shape.
Yep.
Like Lord of Wolves 2, despite the fact that it rotates, is always like the same diameter apart at the same thing. I mean, maybe they heard your complaints fall out about when you were testing shotguns and the non-uniformity of the spread is frustrating to deal with. So now they're like, it'll be the same every time. It'll be the easiest thing to test ever.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that they're reading pages right out of my diary because, yeah, shotgun pellet spread RNG is the worst thing in the world ever. It makes it really annoying to pin down the consistency of shotguns, which is like, literally, I want to say about half an hour before we went live for the show, Astrocross tweeted out, he's like, hey, what's the range cap on shotguns? It's like, what a tweet, dude. Like, how long do we have to answer that question? Like 10 years? Why don't we think about other things? Why don't we try to solve the oil crisis or something? Like, they're so difficult to pin down, and it's a lot of RNG that makes it sloppy. And you guys ever played Gears of War?
Of course.
Okay, there you go.
I haven't much really.
Really? But you were an Xbox guy.
Halo.
Same.
Fair enough. I was a Halo guy.
Third person, man. Third person.
Yeah, Gears was kind of fun though. But I think if I remember correctly, the shotgun spread was like a pattern, like a preset pattern. Let's use a better example. Apex, right?
Yeah.
What is the Peacekeeper shotgun?
Mm-hmm.
That has a designed carved in stone pellet spread, so you know what you're getting every time you pull the trigger. In Destiny, for the most part, it's highly random when you pull the trigger. Of course, it's never going to be a situation where like one pellet goes low and like 10 pellets go high. It's always going to be a similar shape, couple in the middle, and then, circle around the outside. But very wildly inconsistent. And Shot Package could make the shotgun game way more predictable. I mean, if you're trying to be more consistent with your damage output. So that's one thing that Felwinter brings to the table. For column 3 and 4, we have the light.gg weapon page open right now. We got fire choices, and I'm going to let anyone talk about any of these choices that they want to. Column 3, slide shot quick draw. Column 4, opening shot Vorpal weapon. Actually, why don't we go around? Who's going to be using what combo day one?
I think quick draw opening shot would be what I would go with, personally.
I'm with teamwork.
Yeah.
I would do that
There's
too.
an opportunity for a Dragon Shadow slide shot, opening shot.
Yeah, I don't want to get into this early, but the weapon retirement announcement made me switch to raid gear, which made me switch to Ophidian and Dragon Shadow again. So I might end up on slide shot opening.
And then when a super comes, we go into the next perk, what you can change to.
Yeah, you
Now,
just get 2 Felwinters. That's the pro tip. You get 2 of them, and then menu over in between a trials round.
Oh my God.
I really like the idea of having 2 Felwinters, one for each occasion. If you only have one, if you only have the patience to get one, and I don't think it would be hard to get 2, but you could always use opening shot for like the first, 3-4 minutes of a game, depending on what you're playing, because you know that when you get into a match of PvP, there's always like that point, a couple minutes go by, and then the supers come in like a huge wave, usually all close to the same time, unless one guy is like popping off, So you could do opening shot for a little bit, then go to Vorpal. It's really a shame that I have to choose between quick draw and slide shot. Does anyone else feel that way? Like, I feel like I'm picking between 2 of my favorite children. Like, I just love both of those, especially for a shotgun.
I like slide shot a lot.
To rule them all, dude. Like, it's really good.
I think slide shot's a great perk, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's a non-decision for me. You're gonna give me quick draw, the choice of quick draw and slide shot, especially when I have opening shot available. I'll never choose slide shot ever.
For the players though who don't know what a primary is and just run around with a shotgun out the entire game, slide shot will be pretty good for those players. Plus, it's one of the 2 perks that allows you to kind of bypass like the range stat on the weapon, right? Opening shot boost range regardless of what the numerical stat is. So does slide shot. So that you double that up with opening shot and full choke and shot package, and it still has a range bonus in accurate rounds. I mean, when you have this, there's going to be no reason to ever, unless there's a dramatic shift in what shotguns are and how they're used. I don't know if there's ever going to be a reason to use any other energy shotgun in PvP.
On that note, is anyone worried at all? Like, I'm just looking at everything on paper, and it's just like Felwinter's. Like, does Bungie really know what they're doing here with this pick, giving us this gun? Like, this seems like it's going to be a top 3 weapon in Trials, weekend 1, like almost guaranteed.
I think it's very healthy for the game. I think Bungie's recognized that, people have, especially PvP players, have put a lot of time into getting these shotguns, mind benders, and not everyone has like the top tier role, and that, of course, you can debate how much of an impact that's making, but people with a better shotgun are ultimately going to have better effectiveness, and be able to win fights as a result. So I think them kind of normalizing this and making a shotgun that, admittedly looks a little on the powerful end, but either way, everyone's going to have a level playing field that, you have a shotgun at your disposal that is pretty much perfect. I don't think it gets better in any single way possible.
That's a really good point. I get into this discussion a lot with people that I talk with about Destiny. What do you guys feel? This is a real big throwback. Remember D1 weapon reforging? Does anyone feel like that was a really good thing? I know it kind of like watered down the loot chasing experience, but from the perspective of a balanced PvP experience, that was kind of awesome in my opinion, because you know what really sucks? You go into PvP, you get killed by a guy and you're like, let me check out that weapon. You check out the weapon. Holy God. What a roll. You know what I mean? And depending on what the gun is, that guy could have spent anywhere from like 10 to 100 hours or something insane grinding for that roll. Like if I go into PvP and I see someone with a really hot spare rations, I get jealous because I want to farm for one, but I don't have the patience to go for more than 2 or 3 hours for the roll that I'm looking for. And it can be brutal. It can be really brutal chasing that god roll. But with the Felwinter, kind of a level playing field if we're getting the exact Felwinter that we're looking at on paper right now. There's like no real role diversity or variety. It's just the Felwinter. So your skill in PvP or your performance in PvP is going to be based on how well you perform, not how good of the role the gun is in your hand. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I can echo that entirely. It's going to create consistency across the board in Crucible. Even the nature of Felwinter's, getting the shot package full choke or whatever, it's just going to be more consistent. Whoever aims center of mass is going to get that hit, versus a Mindbender's could randomly get that better spread, and you could lose a shotgun fight even though you had better aim.
And like right here, give me a hell yeah if you have spent more than 5 hours farming for a Mindbender.
Rookie hours.
I said, give me a hell yeah.
Hell
yeah.
I haven't.
I was kind of insulted by only 5 hours.
I wanted to set a low floor before seeing how insane Cammy got with the grinding.
I did so much Mindbender grinding that I gave up on Mindbenders after a certain point. I said, you know what? I'm just going to go Dragon Shadow and Ophidian, and I'm using the Reckoning shotgun with 1-2 punch. But I never got that one either. So,
Cam, I just went Chaperone. I'm like, I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah, Drew went Chaperone. The only saving grace was the gunsmith who gave me a good bone structure with quick draw opening shot. But past that, I've sort of been very unlucky with shotguns. So getting Felwinters is a dream come true. It means I can play the game. I can play PvP now.
That is true.
CQC 12, man.
Mm-hmm. I got a pretty decent one on that one, but not perfect yet.
Cool guy. You did a video on the CQC 12 recently.
Yeah. How
competitive do you? I have a hunch that CQC 12 is going to be decently competitive with Felwinters. I think. And I think it's actually better.
I think so too. I think so too. I don't think people are ready to hear that, but I think so too.
Cool guy, not only am I ready to hear it, I'm actually demanding that you tell me more.
So, basic real quick. And I think we're going to get into this a little bit later with, identity of archetype. So with the lightweights, they change the cones, right? Bungie comes out with a balance patch, and the game needs that at some point. Now, we can all agree range was brought in a little bit on all of them, but in some cases, they're consistent, right? Like the lightweights feel better than they ever have. So an aggressive frame like a Mindbender's, and Fallout can back me up on this, Drew, Cammy, Consistent at about 7 meters. Now, we all know RNG's in there. They're sliding, you're sliding, there's jumping. Right? There's Icarus on one shotgun, there's not on the other, right? So about 7 meters, they can map to almost 9, 8.5, 9, with like the perfect RNG shot. The lightweights also hit at 7. Like that's their max end, and they hit at 7.5, almost 8. Like I haven't gotten 8. Like I've been right there. Drew, have you ever gotten an 8 with a lightweight?
Very occasionally.
So
Yes.
they're like right there, dude. Like half meter, a meter. They're like right there. But with a lightweight, you have the frame, which is a +2 passive. It's 6.5%, more speed. That closing distance going in, and you have the fire rate. And with that particular one, it has Vorpal, meaning that when you hit a super, you do more damage to them. It ends up being the same exact as a base aggressive frame. So a 50% damage reduction on a super, it does 11, which is the same as an aggressive does, just period. So you're going to have that movement in those CQC, like around corners, jumping, knee sliding, things like that with that shotgun. That's why I think it's always going to have that, just like the aggressive's always going to have that meter more. But like that's the strength and weakness. That's like the give take.
Well, what
Bring
about?
up a good point.
I was gonna say, cool guy. What about Vorpal on lightweights versus now Felwinter being the only aggressive of the Vorpal? I actually think that Vorpal is going to be better on the CQC.
Yes,
Like,
because of
There's two reasons to that
back-to-back.
if you want me to get into it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, first reason, it shoots faster. If neither one single taps a super, you want the one with the faster rate of fire. But the second reason is, remember, you have a melee. So if they both shotgun melee, then you use the one with the faster rate of fire because you have to be in melee distance anyway.
Not to mention the frame itself. So like when you're doing your knee slides, your ADS is faster than an aggressive frame. Like all of it's faster. So that's really the big thing that it has going for it. And later on, however many months, however many expansions, like I'm really gonna start paying attention to the lightweights. But what I want out of it is directly on the CQC 12, man, that quick draw Vorpal. That's what I want out of a PvP role.
I don't think Felwinter's is gonna just be an unmovable shotgun in my inventory. There are definitely other shotguns in the game, barring weapon sunsetting, that I would want to still go for.
Yeah.
Like the Last Man Standing with opening 1-2 punch, the Crown of Sorrow Raid Shotty with quick draw opening shot. Those and the CQC could push Felwinter's out of my inventory.
However, like I'm also on, like you have to be like a realist about it. Like if the Felwinter starts getting like consistent 10-meter kills, like a slug, like a chaperone, right? So like, that's gonna start like being more strength for a Felwinter. So like you have to be a realist about it too, I think.
That would be a problem. That would be an extreme outlier in the world of shotguns right now. I mean, the way I'm looking at it on paper is it's a God-rolled Mindbenders and a tiny, tiny bit better,
More
right?
consistent.
Like, yeah, just enough to where even if you have a God-rolled Mindbenders, it probably makes sense to still walk up to Felwinter and use that. But if it's killing, 2 meters past, or if it's killing 2 meters past with any type of consistency, then we're going to have a problem because they've ran shotguns in a lot, and that's basically pushing them right back out to where, it can start to get frustrating getting killed at certain distances. And I hope we don't see
I'll
that.
add 2 more things to considering a shotgun.
Sure.
You have the in-air accuracy, which means if you're above a target, you're usually above their head. And so if you have something like rifled barrel that has precision damage over the full choke, that might mean the difference. But then there's also hand cannon cleanups, the shoddy. So if Felwinter's doesn't take their health bar down as much as a Mindbender to then clean up with the hand cannon shot, you might find Mindbenders just more universally consistent to how you play PvP.
Yeah. God, cool guy. I wasn't even thinking about a potential 10. Like, I really wasn't. I was probably
dude, like,
keeping fingers crossed for 9, which I
possible.
think is going to be possible on consistent. Good Lord, 10 would be a really extreme
I
situation.
mean, we've been there before, though. That's
Yeah.
when shotguns killed at 10 meters, I didn't even recommend quick draw because why do you need to switch to a primary? 10 meters, you can
That's a
play
good
every map in
point.
the game without a primary.
Pretty much.
I could see 10 meters if they required a higher percentage of their pellets to kill, right? Like I could see if you tightened up the spread and you said, okay, you have to hit 12 pellets at 10 meters to get a kill. But because of the way spread works right now, there's no possible way to hit 12 pellets at 10 meters, but you only need, 9 or whatever. So it doesn't matter one way or the other. If you wanted to make shotguns more based on actually being precise, then sure, you can buff that range out. But as long as we've got these huge, spread patterns up close that only require a relatively low percentage of pellets to hit to get a kill, when you put them at 10 meters, it's a little bit easier than the risk that the player is taking closing to within 10 meters.
You know what I'm thinking? For the Legend of Acreus shotgun, you guys know I might not have used that in a while, but the damage drop off is hard, man.
Yeah.
That is a hard damage drop off. You could get full on kill and then
Zero
step back
damage.
like 2 inches. Yeah, it's 0 damage. That is a hard wall. I'm thinking if shot package on the Felwinter is really gonna be that hot, because again, if you're landing all of your pellets, like you could in theory get a 1-hit kill out to 10. Like 5 out of 8 times, I don't know, but if there's a huge fall off, like the Acreus, that could prevent the Felwinter from being like,
I'm thinking that might be the case, which is why I brought up that a Mindbender to hand cannon cleanup might be more favorable.
It could be, yeah.
Because at that same distance, Felwinters could hit 2 damage.
So what do you guys think is the current best case scenario 1-hit kill for aggressive shotguns, for Mindbenders, for Astral, etc.?
For all aggressive frames or the Felwinter only?
For aggressive frames currently, what is the best case scenario 1-hit range you guys think?
Like Stars
now?
Align?
Yeah, it could be Stars Aligning. I think it's 8.5.
I've hit a 9 before. It was yeah.
I feel like I've hit a 9
rare.
too.
Yeah,
Okay.
Super rare. Super rare.
So I've been of the opinion recently, honestly, that this shotgun, like Merc said, is going to be nothing more than a God Roll Mindbenders with more consistency. It doesn't have rifled. It's not, so it's losing out on the potential that to map people because of precision damage. That could be partially what gets you a 9 as well.
It could. Yeah, it could.
Right? It's not gonna. I don't know. It really depends on how effective I guess shot packages. But I don't know. I really don't see it being as strong as perhaps it's hyped up to be. I think it's just going to be really consistent. I think it's going to hit 8s all the time. If you aim well, I think you're always hitting an 8. Or
I
an
would agree.
8.5 maybe. But I don't see it being 9, 10. I just don't see it, and I could be completely wrong.
Let's step back for a minute here, because not to prop ourselves up in some weird way, we play this game a lot. Comparing to Johnny Dayjob, maybe who doesn't have the time to come home after a long day's work and waste 7 hours of his night farming for a Mindbender. You know what I mean? This could be the god tier weapon undoubtedly for that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
For sure. Because I'm pretty sure we've been over this, right? Don't all of us have full vaults at all times because we're kind of crazy?
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
I have so many shotguns in my vault that you've no idea. So we have, other options. This will be an excellent addition to my collection. Insert General Grievous breathing here. But will it be the end-all, be-all? I think it depends on how well shot package performs. But outside of that, I think you definitely will have other options. Like you guys mentioned, the CQC. I love my Mindbender. I'm never going to dismantle that thing. It's so snappy. The combo of quick draw snapshot, which only adds frames to your ADS time, but still, it's made a difference between me living and dying. Still.
I think this is healthy for the game. I think this.
I would agree. Yeah.
Players in
I've done a YouTube series on stock loadouts or starter packs, things that are the same for everybody and sometimes pretty easy to get. And I think Felwinters would be a great addition to that.
Yep.
What if, though? What if Felwinters is in the power slot, not the energy? What if they trick us?
I mean, it's in the databases. Anyway.
I would write
it
a
says energy in the
strongly worded
database?
letter
It
to
is,
light.gg.
Dude, how cool would that be, though? A sniper rifle, fighting lion, and a shotgun?
That'd be sick.
Really quickly before we move on to the other topic, any other good pairings that we think are going to be to put together with the Felwinter's lie? What is the red wine that you are going to pair with your Felwinter steak?
Astro Horizon, no.
Yeah.
Spiro's Thorn Ace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thorn
Any
Ace,
cross
yeah,
with
good call.
malfeasance.
Good call.
I feel like you can put anything with this though. It's like
Yeah,
it's
you
just
can.
it's just a super perfect shotgun for everyone, right? Like you can pair this with everyone or with anything.
That is true. It's the what is that expression? The black dress that goes with everything, you know? Come on, Drew. Tell
like
us about
that?
your black dress that goes with everything.
What
Moving
I'm
right
worried about-
along.
I was gonna quickly say I
Yeah.
want to hear what you guys have to say about this. So right now, a lot of people are, some people are complaining and not happy about mind benders being so common. What
Mhm.
happens when this becomes undoubtedly common? Because it will. It's gonna be more common than mind benders because everyone
will,
now has a good shotgun. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, it's just the circle of life in the D2 community. I used to have literally a PowerPoint slide on my Twitter like years ago. The cycle of a powerful weapon or strategy in D2, where it comes out and then becomes super, overused, and then the people start complaining. There's going to be complaint threads on Reddit and Twitter and everything, and then eventually people will find ways around it, but the memes will continue. I just think there's going to be complaining, but is that really any different than what we usually see in the day-to-day?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
on par,
it's just
dude.
yeah.
I don't usually find it a problem to see the same thing over and over again, as long as I know that the sandbox is diverse enough to have other competitive options. So if I see Felwinters all the time, then I'm just going to adjust. You might see me on Chaperone if I know that most people have a shoddy now.
There you go.
There are two things that like really frustrate people in the Crucible, and one is seeing the same name over and over again, killing them. Doesn't matter if it's a person, doesn't matter if it's a gun. When it's the same name over and over killing someone, that frustrates them. The second, and this may just be me, is like a sound. If I consistently get killed by the same sound, like Luna's and Not Forgotten have a really distinctive sound. Back in year one, D1 Suros regime had like an extremely distinctive sound, right? And you start to get like triggered by that sound just every single time you hear it. So hopefully Mindbenders or Felwinters doesn't have like a distinctive blast sound when it shoots, because if it does, it's going to trigger people twice as fast as
it does the Roblox oof like every time.
I feel like I had that problem with. Remember when the Telesto was really strong?
Yeah, and you'd
I
hear
was
it charge it up.
Hearing that noise in my sleep, Mercules.
People are now hearing Bastion about the same thing. Like you hear the Bastion charging up, and people are just triggered before they even die to it.
That was me with Last Word when it's at its strongest. I'd hear it across the map. I'm like, you're taking how many bullets to kill this man?
All right, let's move on. Good talk about the Felwinters, boys. If you're listening to this podcast over the weekend, you probably have it now. Let us know what you think about it on Twitter. We'll get into our tags later, but let us know what you think about the gun. Moving on to our next topic, which I've put off for long enough, and I'm sure everyone is so excited to talk about. Everyone's so excited to hear more people talk about this. Weapon sunsetting. Kind of been a hot topic in the community lately. Bungie is really moving forward with a plan in mind. They have a vision of what they want the game to be in terms of the meta, in terms of the sandbox, in terms of their work balancing weapons and preventing power creep. Does anyone want to explain what weapon sunsetting is before we go any further? To the people at home.
Just taking away all your favorite toys, getting rid of them forever. Until they bring them back in a later DLC.
Good start.
Oh, spicy already. Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
There you go.
So, any weapon you have currently in the future will not be able to be infused to a new maximum power level. And so that means your weapon has an expiration date.
12 months.
12 months, you say? Okay.
1 year.
Yeah. For in-game activity, anything where light level matters is what they say.
From when that item comes out, not when you obtain it. So if something comes out in Season 13 and you get it in Season 13, you have it for a year. But if you get that Season 13 item in Season 15, you might only have a season or two.
I also assume it means even if it comes out late in the season, it's counted as Season 13. So I assume
Probably
date
true.
starts at the start of the season.
Yeah, start of the season. Absolutely.
But for weapons that already exist now, so like the Mindbender, let's say, The Mindbender came out a long while ago. So right when season 11, when are they doing this? 11 or 12? 12. Okay.
And 11, you're going to see the notifications of their max light, and then 12, they will start getting a sunset.
Right. So the process is going to begin at 12. So is the Mindbender, for example, going to get taken down, or not get taken down, but not be able to achieve the new maximum power level in season 12, I would imagine?
Yes.
Correct.
In theory, like, I don't think they've gone over the rollout, but
they haven't gone over specifics, no.
Yeah,
Just
but
kind of
theory.
In theory, that would be the case. So, why are they doing this? Anyone want to take that? With a non-Mimi answer.
I can give a non-Mimi answer, because this is actually something that when I was at Bungie, I argued like a lot
Really?
against. Yeah.
Wow.
Because,
okay, then, yeah.
So, how much can I say without getting taken to court? So,
Before
Careful,
Deej rolls.
Stitch.
I talked with Josh Hamrick about this like at length, right? Because Josh Hamrick, as the sandbox guy, was a huge proponent of sunsetting because it makes sandbox's job a lot more manageable, right?
Okay.
The problem with not sunsetting stuff is when you bring unique things into a sandbox and they're eternal, you always have to basically test new content retroactively against all the old stuff that's still in the sandbox. So when you bring Whisper into the sandbox, and Whisper is around forever, every time a new raid comes out, you have to test every new raid encounter against Whisper and against Tractor Cannon and against Revoker and all this other stuff. So from a sandbox perspective, it starts to get the task starts to get harder and harder and harder as the game goes longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
And you end up with what they consider to be sandbox bloat. Right, so that's one of the reasons why, and that's something they talked about in the TWAB.
There's definitely more to it. I mean, that would be pretty hilarious if the only reason they wanted to do that was because of. It's not because they're lazy or anything, is what I want to get across.
No,
it's not like
hard.
because that would be a monumental task every time they introduce one new weapon perk or one new gun. You know what I mean? They all of a sudden have a mountain of a task in front of them where they have to go through every single encounter. They have to test everything they could possibly think of. How does this interact with Telesto to make sure that one weekend trials doesn't get completely borked and taken off the shelf because, oh, we forgot that the new perk, you combine it with Telesto, boom, instant super in 2 seconds, right? So it creates a huge amount of work from a sandbox perspective. But there's also the desire to, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, there's also the desire to keep the meta kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Fresh, rotating, a rolling, living thing. So that way we're not getting eternal champions of the meta. What was that, cool guy?
The game has to evolve.
The game has to evolve. Like, for example, when the Recluse came out, right? That gun was hot. And it remained hot for a very, very long time, to the point where it almost, like, you would be silly to go into PvE and not use that gun. So that would be the two, in my opinion, reasons why they're trying to make sunsetting the new face of the Destiny sandbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, not a lot of people are happy about this, including some people in this very room.
Yeah, I mean, moving forward, we just have to temper that this does affect the sandbox and go from that perspective as well as addressing the other opinion.
Sure.
Because this is like a sandbox-oriented podcast. So
yeah.
How does it affect this podcast, for example, moving forward?
There's a lot to think about.
The thing is when we talk about like a rotating meta, Recluse is a very unique weapon that could have been even like exotic tier. We can say that about a lot of the pinnacle weapons. They're like pseudo exotic weapons. So that's not the average weapon. So when you're talking about things like Spare and Mindbenders, what you're gonna have is like, I would say just the same weapons with different names. Like it's the archetype that people value about the Spare. It's the archetype of the Mindbender. Obviously, those shotguns are great because of some perks that roll on them, but inherently, top tier players are using lightweights because lightweights are the best. And we're not going to see the game evolve until the sandbox is balanced and shifts some sort of balancing in some sort of way.
Right. I have an issue with them using sunsetting as a way to balance the sandbox, right?
Same.
And number one is that if you are really giving us a year before stuff gets sunset, that's way too long in terms of balancing a sandbox, right? Like that basically means that we can't rely on sunsetting to balance the sandbox. Because if you leave something like Recluse there for a full 4 seasons, it's going to cause issues, especially if it's in PvP. So you still end up having to balance things, with actual nerfs and buffs and stuff like that, right? Which kind of then removes the point of using sunsetting to balance stuff. And the other thing is that there's a possibility, you mentioned it's the archetypes that are strong. There's the possibility, and I'm not saying they're going to do this may be my paranoia, but they can completely leave archetypes out of competitive in-game activities. If they sunset a lightweight hand cannon, and then they sunset another one, and they don't replace it for a couple of seasons, there may just be no lightweight hand cannon that can be used in light-enabled activities. Or same thing with an aggressive shotgun. I'm not saying they are going to do that, but it is potential, especially with how quickly they are adding guns each season, which is not quickly at all. It's a potential that our sandbox pool of usable weapons in in-game activities gets narrowed very, very quickly.
So here's something that I don't want to happen. I don't want to shine the spotlight on one specific person and have them be accidentally pictured as the face of the pro sunsetting campaign, right? That would be bad. The good news about this podcast, let me tell you the good news about this podcast, aside the fact that it's awesome. Everyone here is a good dude. All of us here, we're all friends. Yeah. We've gone to events. We've gone to events together, hung out together, had some brews together. We've listened to Taylor Swift together.
Certainly have.
We have the ability to talk about things from all angles without getting riled up and our thongs in a wad, right? So with that in mind, I want to throw it over to Cool Guy. Not because he is going to convince the all-wise sunsetting is good. That's not what his responsibility is here. But we've talked about it before. I think he's mentioned some reasons why it might be not perfect, definitely not the right word, but it does bring some value to the table. I just want to get his perspective on that. Again, he is not the pro champion of sunsetting. There's many, many angles to this discussion. I would just like to hear a different perspective from him real quick.
There's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about Sandbox in a moment, but there's a lot of fears, right? And I think the number one thing is trust in Bungie to do it, right? I think the player base is saying, okay, you're going to take away my stuff. I don't think that you're going to be able to replace them like Drew was saying, maybe you're getting the same archetype of hand cannon, just differently skinned, but it's the same, right? Like nobody really wants to do that. I've heard people in the arguments that, hey, I've spent 200 hours getting my rapid hit rangefinder spare rations or getting this weapon or that weapon. You can't take that away from me, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'm on the other side of that. Like, they're upset that weapon's getting taken away. Like, for me as a player, like as a Destiny player, Destiny means different things to different people, right? Your version of Destiny is different than mine. So, as an example, I've done the 200-hour grinds. Like I've done Grasp of Malak for whenever the strike was out, and I've done it for like 9 hours straight back in D1. To me, that is like a part of Destiny. Like doing that grind with friends, like just hanging out, just mindlessly playing, then getting the role, getting excited about the role, then using said role and like feeling good about it. With sunsetting, that means I get to go out and do that for more stuff, right? Like, when Mindbenders is getting left behind right now, you got a Felwinter's Lie. The Felwinter's Lie is existing, so, to kind of ease that whole Mindbenders thing. Like, they want to create new stuff. I'm a type of player that wants to go out and get that and experience new weapons, right? But, like, my fear is, I'm going to start getting into the sandbox. Like, I made a video today. If you don't read my blog, that's fine. Anybody listening, that's okay. I'll kind of give you a little quick speed run on it. Like, with the overall sandbox, like Drew was saying, like people are going to gravitate to a frame, right? And like metas are made, power creep happens, but ultimately, there's reasons why you choose those things. There's a reason why you choose Spirit Benders. They're good, but it's more or less the elements are kind of bad, right? So like my fear is, and I used the 180 RPM scouts as an example, and I used oxygen, right? Say oxygen comes out after sunsetting, like that's their new quote powerful weapon. The oxygen struggles now in this sandbox. Like if that's what you're going to give me later because it has Maganur and it's got this huge explosion, it's like it's still going to kind of suck, right? And it kind of sucks because the archetype sucks. Like it's in a bad spot. It needs PvE buffs. It needs PvP buffs. I talked about we could talk about rocket launchers, right? You can make a new rocket launcher, but the rocket launchers aren't that good, and they haven't been good for a long time. We talk about the Suros rapid fire sidearms. We talk about lightweight 450 pulses. And in the video, I was talking like every other archetype allows you to have leniency, but those lightweight pulses. Like you have to land 8 headshots, and it's within a 29-meter range, which is the same as the 600 ARs. It's the same as hand cannons. Like it gets torn up. Like you can make powerful weapons, but it's not going to change like the actual area of what the archetype is, like the bones, the core of the weapon. Like it's in a bad spot. You have to update the sandbox to get excited about new things. Because I'm telling you right now, if you make an aggressive frame SMG like Cold Front, have some super cool perk, you're not going to be able to control it on with a controller on console. Like it's going to feel bad. Like it needs like a lot of quality of life adjustments to things. And as Merc was saying, rip them out. Like that's an option too, right? Or build on them or innovate on them in some way. Maybe add something to their frame. But with me, with sunsetting, like it's kind of like almost in a Bungie We Trust type deal. Because to me, I'm thinking, okay, Destiny 1 came out September 2014. Destiny 2, September 2017. September 2020 is coming up. In theory, that's Destiny 3. And I have a feeling, of course, the studio can't push that right now. They couldn't launch that game, but they're always building stuff, right? So I'm pretty sure that they have content, they have things that they want to do, and I think later on in the year and past into 2021, we're gonna see kind of why they're doing this. But we just don't know what we don't know. Like we're upset now, but like they want to change it into more of an MMO type deal. That's why I'm for it. Like yeah, it sucks. I'm losing some weapons, but I'm still gonna play the game and get the new stuff. Like it doesn't bother me too bad because I play with you Fallout, I play with you Drew and Cam. Play with Mercules. Like that's fun to me, going and doing that content. I don't want to take any more time. Somebody just piggyback off it.
I was gonna let you go until we ran out of time.
I could, dude.
I love to hear you go on about this. Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
So Cam made a video and is talking about like, so you want to get good with raid gear, or you want to get raid gear, you want to get good with exotics because those are
more permanence.
Because those are going to stay. Like when they make powerful stuff, like I just want to reiterate one more time. Like say they come out with an ultra powerful like Gallarhorn 180 RPM scout, right? Like it just like shoots little wolf pack rounds. It's still gonna suck. Like the player base isn't gonna like that. You know what I'm saying? Because it struggles now. It struggles against majors, struggles against ads. And the other day I kind of gave the question to on Twitter and on to my Discord community there, how would you feel about no power level in PvP? Now, in Trials, you probably need to have that to curb the cheating that goes on Steam. But it would alleviate some of these things for these players. But someone said, you can't have one player base using whatever they want at any given time, and then another player base having to go out and chase things. What do you think about that?
There's cheating going on Steam?
No, none of that.
I don't play there. I did it once. I saw all I needed to see.
Couldn't help myself. Sorry. Yeah, that's a lot to unpack and to take in.
That's one of my concerns for sunsetting for sure. Is if powerful new stuff comes out that does affect normal PvP forever. If there's Recluse 2.0, it's going to exist in regular PvP forever.
What I'd like to piggyback off of that point, Cam, is there's a really, being obviously our focus here is to talk about the sandbox. So my biggest sandbox related concern for this, other than balancing, is diversity. So it seems like weapon sunsetting has the potential to heavily dilute the potential variety and depth we have in the sandbox. Because right now, if you're someone that loves the sandbox in this game and is passionate about it, you know that there is a lot of depth, and it's something I've never seen in any other game. Like there's so much depth in the sandbox. this has the potential to threaten that in more than one way. Firstly, like Merc said, is leaving archetypes behind or making slim pickings for a lot of different archetypes, where it's like you're now using 1 or 2 weapons, or like, obviously I'm over exaggerating, but using a few weapons to represent an overall archetype, whereas now we have a multitude of weapons, and things that are kind of unique in different ways based on a lot of combinations. The other thing is that if you're making really powerful and standout weapons, as they kind of gave an example in a tweet, that has a way or a potential to threaten the diversity again, because just like Felwinters, as much as we explain that there will be other shotguns, there's still potential that this is the shotgun, and this could be the shotgun for a really long time, which means you're not going to see a lot of other shotguns. So that's my concern. Sandbox depth.
I know where most people at this table sit regarding the sunset issue. What I'm curious is, what would be the factor that made you say, okay, you know what? I might have been wrong. So for Drew, I know that you've been pretty active in talking about how you think sunsetting could be pretty bad for D2 as a whole.
Yep.
What would it take for Bungie to do it correctly that would make you say, in 2021, you're like, you know what? They did a good job with sunsetting. What would that take for you?
I love this question, by the way, Fallout. That was the one to ask.
Yeah, this is a really, really great question, because it's not even asking, you know, a solution, but it's asking, like, you know, what would it take for me to feel good about this? And I know exactly what that is. Player control. Give me, if we're going to be on a rolling rotation, I'm going to call this a rotation in our format similar. We always go back to card games, and they also related to card games. Now, Magic, I'm not as familiar with that. But what it would take for me is, if we're going to have a rotation in our format, I'm going to call it for endgame PvP, I'm cool with it. But now you got to give me control as a player. So that means you got to really give me the power to invest time at any level. You can tell me, like, you know, you say jump, and I'm going to say how high, you know, like in terms of how much time you want me to put in. I'll put in any amount of time if you can assure me that I'm going to get something close to exactly what I'm looking for. And you can take that away from me. You know, I don't care. As long as that's, you know, obviously I say, you know, any amount of time, but reasonable relative to a year, that I have a good enough time or a good enough amount of time to enjoy it. But again, I need control over the RNG. I need a way to curb this, and I'll actually feel better about that than I do about the current system, because that's going to respect my time more. Yeah, it's going to go away at some point after a year, but if I get to spend, let's pretend, even 2 months, 3 months on an entire perfect build, I get another like 9 months. I mean, like, again, there's time to acquire and like a few other factors that might shorten that, but let's just say for all intents and purposes, at least, you know, 8 months or so with like a perfect loadout that I had the control and precedence to actually make myself. That feels really good, I think.
That's a better net gain of time.
Yeah, it's a better
what you enjoy playing.
Exactly. So that'd make me feel really great about the system, actually.
Merc, anything, because I know that you're sort of feeling in the same camp. Any piggybacking thoughts onto Drew's feeling of potential workage there?
Well, I mean, that's you talking about like the respecting your time and the short chases that, you know, Cool Guy mentioned enjoying doing. That's one of the things they talked about in the TWAB as being a reason why they wanted to do sunsetting, because they wanted to provide chases more often. Whereas if you have all the best gear now and your gear lasts forever and new stuff comes out, if it's not better, then there's kind of less of a chase to go get it, right? So they're trying to push us in that direction. My worry is that right now, like you guys talked about how long it took you to get good Mindbenders rolls, and you still don't have them despite 100 hours being put into it, right? Like if you're telling me that I'm going to grind for 100 hours to get a gun that's then going to be gone in a couple months, people just aren't going to do it, right? If you're telling me I have to grind for hundreds of hours to get a pinnacle weapon like Not Forgotten, and then it's going to be gone in a couple months, people aren't going to do it. So they need to bring in more stuff like Menagerie, like the obelisks, like re-rolling perhaps. If they want these to be short, satisfying pursuits that happen every single season, then it needs to be a short, satisfying pursuit. Right now, it's not. Right now, it's a grind. And you can't tell me to grind and then tell me you're going to take away the thing that I was grinding for. And that's, you know, it's not weapons, but armor. I'm like tremendously worried about them sunsetting armor when it's ridiculously hard to get fully masterworked loadouts right now. So,
yeah, I can piggyback off that. That's the biggest thing that would sell me on sunsetting is if they can give us intentionality on the roll, and then in addition to that, maybe allow you to curb the RNG menagerie style, but maybe also tied to difficulty. So if you're not as adept at an activity, it might take you longer to get to that same path. But if you're really into the game and know what you're doing, it could be a lot faster. For example, I'll give you a random task. Complete a Grandmaster Nightfall. Sure, some players can do that, but what if it's complete all 6 in the season to guarantee a specific piece of gear, perk for perk, masterwork, everything? That's more or less what I'm talking about.
That makes sense. Cool guy, I was going to give you the same question, and I was going to flip it. Unless you have something you wanted to add first, but ultimately I wanted to know if we're both feeling that maybe not sunsetting is like, oh, perfect. We love that it's going in this direction. We understand what they're trying to bring to the table. I think a lot of us we all understand what Bungie is trying to accomplish. Some of us are more worried than others, but for you, what would be in early 2021, we look at it and go, wow, they really did this poorly. For you, cool guy, what would that look like in your minds, where sunsetting is kind of very clearly not performing the way some people hoped it would be?
I think like the elephant in the room is the gameplay loop for the loot. Like we've talked about, like that's really, in my opinion, the biggest thing. Because like people that are against sunsetting, Drew can't. Well, first of all, and I talked to Drew and Cam like a couple weeks ago. It's like, okay, when I look at this, things like these, like I try to see both sides, and honestly, both sides have valid arguments. Like if you were to debate me, like, dude, I spent X amount of hours doing this. Like I get it. Like I can't debate that, right? But like if I had to choose, like I even made the video today, and I told people in my Discord, like it like 10 out of 10, one of the greatest anime betrayals of all time. Like if I had to lean, it's for sunsetting, right? You wouldn't think that, but like to everyone here, like if the gameplay loop was satisfying, would you be for sunsetting?
I wouldn't be for it, but it'd feel okay. Like I'd be
if it was more
much
enjoyable.
more understanding. I'd be much more understanding. But that means you have to give me a lot of control. I want like a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not something I compromise on. Satisfying to me means I can get what I want for putting in the time and effort.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
That gets back to, I'm going to start talking about Menagerie real quick. Menagerie was, in my opinion, top 3 activities in Destiny's history. Like they did so good with that. And what I think happened is like it's kind of like lightning in a bottle. Like they tried it with the Vex Offensive, nah. They tried it with the Sundial, But like in those things, going back to what I was talking about earlier with the sandbox, like we did Vex Offensive, we have the imperative high impact scout. Like, and I know somebody's listening, like, dude, that's like my favorite gun. I have Outlaw multi-kill clip. Like, good for you. I love you. You keep doing you. But like, it's a bad gun, right? It has to be worthwhile to go get these things, right? So I think that the Menagerie type deal is kind of wearing people thin, like at least from everything I've seen on Twitter, in my Reddit, my YouTube comment section. But if they're doing things like this Felwinter thing, like direct pass to really good weapons to do with your friends, I'm okay with that. They talked about the new Ingram to where you can add materials to kind of section things out. Like I'm okay with that. Like I think that would be a success in my opinion, right? I still like, I have done Reckoning so many times. I still don't have a quick draw mind benders. I don't know how many times I've done that strike with Drew and Cam. I don't even, have I done it with you, Fallout? I'm pretty sure I have. Like I've done it with everybody.
If we have, my memories have all blended
like I've done
together.
it so many times that I haven't even gotten a quick draw one. Like it's whatever. Like I was hanging out with you guys. Same thing for what spare rations. All I want is a rapid hit spare. Never gotten it to drop, and I've done Reckoning like to the ground. But Reckoning isn't a fun activity, right? It was fun in the beginning, but it kind of wears a year later on players. But ultimately, I think it's how they roll this out, and if the content can be obtained in a more enjoyable way, because they're trying to get this new gear, these new weapons. They want to, as Merc was saying, leave things behind. Like, okay, they make something new, but then they have to go back and babysit Mountaintop and Recluse. Like, I think they just want to stop doing that. They're just going to add in stuff that's going to fall off. And if they become issues in PvP, like, they're going to fix it. Like, if Prometheus Lens comes out, they're not going to let that fly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it's like super OP, they're not going to let that fly. It's going to get a hot fix, but I don't know.
if I can make one more point that I feel like pretty passionate about that I didn't get to mention, going back to the card game deal.
Hey.
I'm not as adept with Magic. I don't play Magic. I play Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's a completely different game. I get that, but there is still a system of like cards go on the ban list, or I guess in Magic that's out of rotation. But go on the ban list, and sometimes they might come back, right? One thing that I really don't like, and I think is really aggressive about sandbox or sunsetting in the sandbox at the moment, is the fact that if I have a weapon, and Austringer is a perfect example of this. I have a weapon where I grinded a long time for. I got some great rolls that I'm proud of. I've developed an affinity with the weapon. I feel masterful with this weapon. Feels great to use. I've spent money on ornaments for this weapon because I love the weapon. Let's say, it's sunset, cool. Gotta leave it behind. But one day my favorite weapon comes back. The current system says that I have to regrind for it, even though there might be one in my vault that I'm truly in love with. That to me is where I start feeling as a consumer almost slighted. It almost feels like, as a, taking a step back, I'm a consumer of this live service. This is Bungie's business. I feel I'm a little bit disrespected at that point.
So let me clarify here. Let me clarify. So when you're saying that, like, if the Austringer were to get, in this example, sunsetted, and then a bunch of time goes by, now you're saying the exact gun, like a new Austringer comes back, or you're just saying a hot new 140 RPM hand cannon?
No,
like,
I'm saying Austringer comes back.
Austringer.
I'm saying Austringer comes back. Like, because as far as I know, they're going to be bringing weapons back, and that's part of the cool part of this. This is actually a part of something I like. This kind of way that you can do this card game format rotation where your favorite card is going to come off the ban list again, and boom, you're getting back into the game, and that's awesome. So I actually think that's positive. But
I got you.
In the event that
scenario,
specifically Austringer comes
they
back,
push Austringer back into the spotlight. Hey, we're letting you take this gun to max power level again, but not the one that you have in your vault, Drew.
This new one you gotta go
get. Like, you gotta get this new one. That's it's Austringer. It's got 2 new perks or something, but you can't use that one you love in your vault.
Yeah, if that were the case, I would. That's a good word that you used. Disrespected. I would feel disrespected. If there was a world where I had to re-grind the Mindbender in its current fashion to reacquire a viable Mindbender comparable to the one that I have now, meaning like my old one was no longer competitive in trials, I would be pissed. I would be pissed.
I want to be able, I really think there's a lot of potential for PvP. Again, in lieu of all the things I don't like about this, there's a lot of potential to have this truly be like a card game. Your favorite card comes off the ban list, you're back into the game, dude. I got to make the time with this. This is going to be sick. I get to use my favorite weapon. I think there's value in this potentially, and how they can shake this up. But if that means that you're now going to tell me that I can't use the one that I was in love with and have sitting right there because I need to get this new one, again, Matador scenario, right? Everyone dismantled the Matadors, new better shotgun didn't come. Oh, here's Matador, regrind your Matador. But I got this really good one in my vault that I saved. And, because I can still use it in normal PvP. I just think that's really concerning, at least for me as a consumer.
Oh, man. The worst part of the Matador was people grinded for the same perks.
Yep.
The same perks that were pretty much the best back then are the same ones people got later.
Yeah, Cam. And to be clear, I want people's favorite weapons to come back into rotation. I think that's exciting for people. It's exciting for me if you told me, I'm going to have to leave something behind and then it's back in the format. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh again because Heroes, my favorite archetype, got new support and cards off the ban list. And I was like, I'm back in the game. I'm playing competitive again. And that's awesome. I think there's a potential excitement factor here for this game too. But not if you make people work and for that stuff again. Sorry, cool guy.
No, I have a question. So I think it's relevant, right? We have a new shotgun coming out tomorrow, and a lot of you listening will already have it in your hands, okay? Say you are, and again, this isn't hating anyone, because like I said, I see both sides. Let's say that this shotgun is as good as it looks on paper. It's the one to rule them all. Are you still gonna die on that hill that you grinded Mindbenders for 50 hours? Are you just going to use Mindbenders instead? Because they're creating new stuff to go chase. This is something new and awesome. Like, would you die on that hill for Mindbenders? Because that's kind of how I look at it.
That's a good question, cool guy. That's a good position. If I had to respond, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but if I had to respond to that,
Do you feel like what?
you know, if I had to respond to that, I think that it really depends on uniqueness versus sheer power, and that's what it's always been about for me. How unique is this new weapon over the last, and is there something that this last weapon does unique, even if it's a little bit, just a tiny little bit? That's what creates depth. So that's what I value.
So we touched on this, but we never actually gave it a full go. Like, there were 4 reasons they mentioned for when to do sunsetting. Power creep was one of those mentions, and we didn't really like discuss it in depth. Felwinters is one of the things that I feel like they would not be bringing into the game if sunsetting weren't a plan. Like, they don't actually power creep legendaries that bad. They power creep pinnacles pretty bad, and they power creep exotics pretty bad, which is a whole nother argument because they're not sunsetting exotics, so they're still gonna have to deal with that. And they've already gotten rid of pinnacles, right? So they kind of dealt with that also. But this is a power creep position on a legendary, which you don't see a ton of. I feel like they wouldn't be doing this if they weren't sunsetting, because what they're giving us is the best possible aggressive shotgun in the game. And if
That is true.
you know, how are you going to make a better aggressive shotgun in the future over Felwinters? You're either going to have to create a brand new perk, or you're basically going to have to nerf the aggressive class of shotguns and then make, you know, a better lightweight or a better precision or something like that. So Felwinters, I feel like, is only coming into this because they're not scared of power creep now. Although that being said, I don't feel like power creep is as bad of a problem as they've made it seem. Every primary in Destiny 2 is still weaker, with the exception of adaptive auto rifles. It's still weaker than its D1 counterpart. Like, even in momentum control, people still ape shotguns despite the fact that scout rifles can one-shot. So, you know, I don't really feel like power creep's that big of a deal on most legendaries, but yeah.
That's a strong point on the anti-sunsetting for me, is that how long are we going to be playing Destiny 2? Is it going to be 1 year more, 2 year more, 10 year more?
That's dangerous thinking, Cammy.
Even with a number like 3 to 5 years, somewhere in that range, I think they could still side grade weapons to be interesting to the sandbox and the kind of people like us, and not run into power creep problems.
I think a lot of it, dude, honestly, and it's just so weird because like I said, I try to sit back. Like, we just don't know what we don't know, dude. Like, I want to believe. I mean, they're just leaving us in the dark of like what they're trying to do, and they're just not explaining it. Like, they're doing it in these weird, like, cryptic sections. Where like, okay, you're gonna do okay. Then there's the Ingram, okay, right? Okay, you're just gonna take away. Okay, there's transmog, like. Which, by the way, I don't really agree with the whole armor deal. Like, I feel the whole economy of just leveling something up needs to not be that expensive. But, you know, that's here nor there.
Can we all agree that it has the potential to go either way?
Yeah.
Yep.
Could
Yeah.
Very much so.
I think polarizingly so. It's either going to be a giant success or a colossal failure. I really don't think there's going to be a middle ground.
Well, I for one cannot wait. Any final thoughts on the sunsetting issue from anyone here? Any final thoughts? A quick summary. Personal position.
Do we get to do like the thumbs up, thumbs down like we do for weapons and vote on it?
That's a really simplified version. All right, sunsetting. Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Down.
You get two from me.
I'm going middle. Middle thumb.
You're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to do that.
Drew, don't put him in the middle. We know
You're not allowed to do that. Dude.
Yeah.
Up or down.
your-
How
Tell
about
me.
how about one of these? Secret
I'll go
ballot,
down then.
bitch.
Fine.
Which way is it going?
I'll
You
go
don't know.
So Fallout, what were you? Were you neutral or were you up on that?
Dude, I don't know. I was talking to Cool Guy literally on the phone the other day. We were on the phone. We called him up. I can't remember what I called it. What did I call to talk to you about? God knows what.
Sunsetting, obviously.
No, something else. I don't know. But we were talking. It was like, dude, sunsetting talk is getting wild. People are arguing on. And you were like, what do you feel about this? I was like, I literally don't know. I feel like they could botch things pretty hard, like in Might Nightmare. It's kind of what Drew described, where they're not giving us they're not giving us more Felwinter options. You know what I mean? If I had like a campaign sign, it'd be like more Felwinter like options. Give us a clear cut path to a gun. That it is at least giving us many ways. How do I phrase this? We want direct access to loot without spending a bajillion hours grinding for something that might not even drop with a good roll. If they're respecting our time, if they're giving us options, if they're giving us variety, if they're giving us weapons that we feel like we can bring into PvE and PvP, and we're like, you know what, this is good. This is fun. I like the way it works. They're respecting our time. They're respecting the community. Then I'm down. If they're not doing that, and we have the current barren landscape of what Merc said, like the degree to how quickly they're rolling out weapons right now, which is very slow, we're going to be in a bad position because we're going to feel like we're in the desert with no water. So I really feel like it could go either way. Am I upset that they're taking the viability of some of my favorite guns away for certain activities? We never clarified this. If you want to go into 6v6, if you want to go into quick play or whatever, that doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want. Power level doesn't matter there. I like that I can still do that. But there's people like Cammy and Drew who really are into the end game level PvP. That's where they want to go and play. They want to perform at their best at the end of the game. You know what I mean? It's not fun for them to go in and slap around people in quick play or whatever. They want the challenge. They want to put their skills to the test. So it does suck to a degree. And I feel the pain of that suckage. Please don't clip that audio clip. I feel like it could go either way.
You know,
I feel like
memes aside, I know everyone's like, yeah, you know, put your thumbs down, Drew. But you know, yes, very personally, I don't like sunsetting simply because I see too many things that can go wrong with it and not enough guarantee that it can go right. And that's cynical, I guess. Like, again, sorry if I'm not being the most positive person on this one, but removing it from myself and my very, very personal opinion, I've really been trying to get past my own emotions on it and be very empathetic towards how everyone plays the game. And I realize how this could be a solution for some and how they play the game. And that's all I ask of people, is to realize that Destiny is a game that we all play very, very differently, and we need to be empathetic towards each other for that, because that's what
Drew,
makes it unique and beautiful to me.
Drew, can I put out there that I love that your quote emotional is most people's like rational discussion? And Drew's like, well, I'm really sorry I flew off the handle with that level-headed discussion. Like, if only
I sometimes I think I do get over emotional. Whether you think it's justified or
you're
not.
allowed to be emotional. That's fine, because this is a game that we care about. We have fun playing. We love the game. We love the weapons that we've earned. We like playing this game. It's just when you take it to the level that you're being a dick about it online and like attacking devs, like that's not the way, bro. We can be cool about this. I know how you feel, and I know that there's a lot of this that you're not looking forward to, which I respect. But I really respect that you have the ability to tell us your thoughts on the issue without being a D-bag about it. Like, seriously, I think that's really, like, for everyone here, I think we got a good crew of dudes who can talk about things level-headedly.
One thing,
thanks, dude. That was very heartwarming.
Yeah. I'm glad you checked through, man. He's
That
good.
was a moment.
Just kidding. You're awesome, Drew, obviously. But I like in my head here with this whole sunsetting thing, a year from now, like best case scenario, like I said, I don't know if you'll agree with me. Like best case scenario is that the game's in a good spot, and it's almost to a point that like you have something in your hands. Like who cares about Spare and Mindbenders? Like you'll just think of them fondly of this time during Destiny. Like that was good, but you have this new stuff that's just totally awesome. I think that's best case scenario.
Fair, yeah.
And no revoker, so.
Yeah, thank God. the one good thing about sunsetting.
Boys,
so you're on
raise the
the other
glass.
side of the fence now, Merc. Okay.
Yeah. No, so the thing is, personally for me, like I actually personally as a player, all right, I actually don't care about sunsetting because I have this like weird obsession where I have to have like new shit on my character every season. Like I can't stand having old stuff on my character. So like I upgrade my armor and my weapons every single season if I can, because I just like having new stuff, right? But that's a choice, right? I'm not being forced by the game to do that, right? It's like if you're given a choice between a red car and a black car and you pick the black car, you're going to feel a lot better about it than if someone tells you this is your new car, it's black, right? Even, you know, I don't like when Bungie tells players how to play the game to an extreme degree. And they do that more often than I really think they should. Right, like especially with champions and stuff now in PvE, and like how the mods force you to use certain types of guns, even like even if you don't really want to, and if that's not what you're comfortable with. And I understand that it takes players out of their comfort zone. And that's great if taking players out of their comfort zone is something done to provide players a more optimal path. And if you don't want to do it, you can still do it another way. But when you tell players this is the only way that things can be done, I feel like it does more harm than good to the community overall, right? So that's why I stand on the side of the fence that I'm on in terms of sunsetting, despite the fact that it doesn't actually affect me as a player. I know that there are people out there who really, really love this one gun, and they have 10,000 kills on it, and now it's going to be gone, and it's going to go sit in their vault, and they're not going to use it. And they say like, oh, the joy comes from this short repetitive grind where you get a new gun and you get a new gun, you get a new gun. But like a lot of the joy that players get is from playing with the gun that they have.
Yes, that's me. You just described me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
There you go.
If you want to segue to me, I can explain that.
Please do.
To me, it's not really about getting the thing as much as it is using it and mastering it and reaching its peak potential, then looking at the sandbox and seeing what works synergistically with it. And sometimes I come out with a product that no one else really has, an end product. And they see that in trials. It's so funny to listen to the Guardian Theater on other teams too, because they're like, Tatara gaze, what is that sniper rifle? And then to see the clip 2 minutes later of the whole team getting kill clip chained or something, it's classic. And I've earned the ability to do that by using it for so long. It really does feel like an extension of the hand. So I guess moving forward with sunsetting with the compromise, let's say I'll give you the real time. I spent 4 weeks in the Forge going for a very, very min-max roll.
Wow. Yeah.
4 weeks, and it's going away. If they offer a system to intentionally work towards the exact role I'm going towards, such as difficulty, I'll give you an example with this one again. I know I did it earlier in the podcast. Let's say it says complete a Forge without getting shot once. If that takes me 4 weeks to get good enough to complete a Forge without getting shot, I'm okay with that, because at least I have a path to the Tatara. It's not going to say 4 weeks or infinite amount of time. It's until I get good enough to do that. And then once I have it, they can take the Tatara away, but they can't take that skill acquisition of learning to do a Forge without getting hit.
it's like our raid weapon should come from a flawless raid, right? Like,
Yeah,
flawless
something like
raid,
that.
you're guaranteed the raid weapon, and then you don't have to run a raid 100 times unless you are running a raid 100 times to do a flawless raid. It feels a lot more like an achievement than just spinning the RNG, wheel and hoping you get what you get.
It makes me feel like I'm playing with intention and not just sitting there wondering when my sniper is going to drop.
Right.
Because I'm going to play anyway. I can have every item that exists in the game, and I will still play.
It's a really complex situation. That's why I had it second on our agenda for tonight, because I knew that once we got into it, it's just we could talk about our positions on it forever. There's plenty to talk about. And the worst part is we have a whole season with that storm cloud, potential storm cloud, let's say, hanging over our head. So there's much to think about. If you have a strong opinion at home about weapon sunsetting, you can let us know on Twitter or, wherever you can find any of us, which we will get to in a minute. Which brings me to the fact that we have very little time left in this show, and we have not yet touched on community questions. We are pulling a original DCP. We have failed to elude adequate time for questions, but we will try to get through a few. I feel like, what would be a good idea for a future episode? We should do like a 50% question episode, because we get a lot of really good questions on Twitter, and we very frequently do not have time to dive.
That sounds fun, man. Like a recurring
sounds
thing
really
every
cool.
10th episode or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think we could do that, because people hit us with very good questions.
Yeah.
Lightning rounds?
Yeah, so right now I have a small handful of questions. Again, in the future, if you've submitted questions to us in the past and we have not asked them, hold on to those questions, because we will do a question-heavy episode in the future, I promise you. But let's keep these short. So we have one from McRich. What would be the right move to balance hand cannons between 140s and 150s, and maybe even allow 180s to be viable again? There has to be a way to balance all three and allow skill to shine through.
I'm interjecting quick and saying this could be a whole episode.
I was
Yeah.
just
This is a whole
thinking the
episode.
entire
Like,
thing.
I
actually
This is
think
a
we should do
literal
that.
episode long quote.
Yeah, like
I'll
I
do the
feel like-
TLDR. Let's go. Rapid fire time. 140s, more range. 180s, faster rate of fire. Make them 200. Thanks, Drew. I stole that one from him.
That's a good answer, actually.
Yeah, 140 is more range, 2 head, 1 body. I'm team 2 head, 1 body now. 180s make them 200, make them the Halo 5 pistol.
Not a bad answer. Okay. M-Mox. As a sidearm guy.
Actually, is how this is pronounced.
Monks.
I called him Mnemonics for a long ass time.
Okay, I don't know how to. Yeah, is it Monks?
Monks.
For those of you who don't know that guy, please check him out on Twitter. He is very smart.
He's the range guru.
He is the range guru.
Potentially a future guest here, if you ask me.
Oh, 100%, yeah. As a sidearm guy, I'd like to know what you guys think of sidearms. Loadouts like Sniper and Sidearm, IMO, The Last Dance, and Hope are the best, although Drang is a close second. I would probably flip those two.
Me too.
But
It's very strong. Best player I know uses Revoker Drang and absolutely dominates with it. I personally like The Last Dance just because I have one with Kill Clip and it shreds once Kill Clip gets activated. But yeah, I think Sniper Sidearm and the aerial play that sidearms allow is, almost second to none in the game right now. So
M&K man strikes again. I like the dead man walking. I spent 4 weeks in the forge. I have a god roll dead man walking, and it is so satisfying to control an entire magazine of that and just map somebody at the lowest amount of damage you do on the floor. It's so funny.
that gun is my new Twilight Oath, Cammy. I am really trying to get one, and I cannot get any version of that gun to drop.
Dead man walking? You're trying to get the dead man
Yes,
walking?
dude.
I know I got a great roll of that when we were
Fun.
playing, right? When we were playing together.
I know. You got like 8 of them. I know.
I'll kill clip one.
I'm trying to not let Bungie know what weapons I'm chasing. They're bugging my phone, bro.
I'll forever have your weapons. They give them to me by accident.
They do.
Switch name.
Yeah, let Drewsky play on your account. Then
Brilliant.
no, the thing is, you'll get them on his account, so you'll have the joy of seeing them fall, but it just won't be for you.
Let's go, cool guy. What's your sidearm?
Drang, man. It's always going to be Drang.
Drang gang?
We worry about Drang with Sunset, right? If they're going to keep that with Sturm. But yeah, Drang's inherent range. Now, on the other end, like as far as the kinetic, I like Lonesome a lot. But full auto kill clip and auto sodom, like the sidearms are actually all in a super good spot. Like there's not many I dislike. But it depends on what you're trying to do. Like some are really good for the range cleanup. Like I have a rangefinder Enigma's Draw, which is the future War Cult one, that I've been using for a little bit longer cleanup. And then the Drang, of course, just pairing that with Revoker is perfect because it's got 19 meters for cleanups and it duels well. So I think they're all in a good spot.
Fair. Question from Omar. Any loadout preparation for sunsetting, i.e. getting maybe God Roll raid gear? I think Cammy may have touched on that briefly. Did you touch on that, or am I making
TLDR, raid gear said in the TWAB that it was going to have an exception, so we don't know if that means it's on par with what exists or if it's going to be even longer. I'm getting it just in case. I will be using Nation of Beast and Supremacy most likely.
Those are good picks. Yeah, I don't know how else you would be able to prepare for sunsetting. I don't think.
I mean, Dire Promise, you get that for an extra season. But then how do you get Dire Promise? It's from the Cryptarch.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually dumped all my legendary shards into the Cryptarch because he has a lot of the best weapons that'll carry forward for a decent amount of time.
There you go. Question from Fabian. Are there any legendary pulse rifles that can compete with the 600 RPM auto rifle in the current sandbox?
Yeah, I mean, Bygones is still okay. Blast Furnace has range whenever you find a map that has a sight line like that. But I tested the rapid fires a lot because I thought they had probably the best chance. And they just don't. They're outranged by adaptive ARs right now, and they're harder to use, which is unfortunate. So legendary pulses aren't exactly in a great place, but if you had to pick one, an adaptive or one of the 4 bursts are probably going to be your best bet, and just try to stay further away than they can hit you.
Keep it over 30 meters. Right, so yep. Redrix excels in that 30 to 35 meter range. The adaptives are really good. The aggressives are good, like the Raid Pulse, Bygones. Like there's a firmly planted right side of wrong that my wife has that like I wish I could get that gun from her because like she plays like twice a week. Like I'd use it all the time. But as long as you keep it past 30 meters, you're going to be pretty good. Like there's some Galliers that can get out there to 34, 35, but they're still going to have some flinch, accuracy issues, some fall off, and you're going to be hitting max damage. And that's what I'd recommend.
I don't know why I picked this question as the last question. I feel like we're reopening a can of worms here. Here's one from Mr. Jeff. With sunsetting, is there any reason to continue trying to get a Not Forgotten?
Forget about it.
Ooh. Really? Really think so,
I'm
Cam?
leaving
There's no
now.
reason. Are you just
Yeah.
memeing?
Show off the EP in Classic Mix, all right?
Show off the EP in classic. Go on, Drew.
Not Forgotten is debatably one of my. I was pouring my heart out, Cam, last night, telling him how much I love this gun, how nothing matches the fantasy behind it, how the model and the design perfectly encompasses what you would expect out of the weapon. It's just like this big, like the lore of it is something I appreciate. It's just like, in my opinion, like I put it on a pedestal. It's like one of the most perfect weapons to me. So for that reason, because of all the things associated with it, the beautiful design of it, the great quests you get to work through that'll just make you a better player, I want to say, and give you something fun to do in PvP. It's truly one of the most unique, like, weapons in the entire sandbox. So to experience that, I think that's awesome. It sucks that you're not going to be able to use it in endgame going forward, as far as we know. So I think that's at your discretion if you think that's worth your time based on how much time you have. But in terms of the weapon itself, I think it's something great to experience between the lore, the design, the functionality, and the uniqueness. I'd say go for it.
I agree. I say go for it. Even if you can't use it in Trials at its maximum light level in future seasons or Iron Banner or whatever, you can still use it in other forms of PvP, and part of earning the gun is like the challenge to get there. Climbing the mountain. Some people like climbing the mountain. Depending on the mountain and what's at the top, I like climbing the mountain. I've chased titles with my fiance. We earned Unbroken together. We earned Flawless together. I can't shoot titles in PvP, but I still enjoy the challenge of acquiring them. And for that reason and more, I would say go for the Not Forgotten. Yeah.
Agree.
Sounds
Booyah.
good to me.
I got the final word. God damn. Well, that's all the questions I have written down. We could obviously spend much more time on the questions that people send us on Twitter. So I promise in the future, we will do a deep, question-heavy episode. It might get off the rails. It might get weird. It might get wild. But I think that might make for a good episode. I think we're going to have to do that. So why don't we wrap things up, go around the table, and tell the people where they can find us. Until next time, Cammy, where can the people find you?
Twitch.tv/CammyCakes, YouTube.com/CammyCakes Gaming, Twitter.com/CammyCakesYT.
Drew, other than the karaoke bar, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Drewsky's channel, or at Drewsky's channel. On Twitch, twitch.tv/Drewskys, and then on YouTube, youtube.com/Drewsky's channel.
Merc, don't leave him hanging.
Mercules 904 on Twitter, Mercules 904 on Xbox, and you can listen to the Destiny Massive Breakdown podcast. We record Thursday night, release Friday morning, and it's a deep dive into the sandbox and everything we do here, but with a lot more cursing and a lot less child friendly.
Sounds great.
It's fun.
He sees both sides of sunsetting, but does he see why kids love Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Cool guy, where can the people find you?
Twitter and YouTube is /CoolGuyGames, and Twitch is going to be, which we almost like partner applications in, man. You guys have been awesome. It is I Am Cool Guy Games. It's been a blast. That's where I'm streaming.
You are 100% going to get it, by the way.
Yeah?
Really,
Hell
dude,
yeah.
you're gonna nail it. You've been crushing it lately.
Oh,
I am
yeah.
so looking forward to you getting that check mark. So kudos to you, buddy. And I am Fallout. You can find me on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter at Fallout Plays. Thank you very much for joining us for tonight's episode of Firing Range. We record every other Wednesday live on Twitch at twitch.tv/DCP_live. We appreciate you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.